freezing out. It is like, I don't know what the Fahrenheit is, but it is like negative 12 outside. It is beyond freezing outside. And I hate it because I have to go out there into the cold and shovel. Oh, God. Mr. Jack. Welcome. It's so good to see you. How have you been? Oh my God. It's so cold out. It's cold out and it's only gonna get colder here. Again, I don't know Fahrenheit, but it's supposed to go down to like negative 22 later this week. I am having a lovely night now that I'm inside from the cold. I have some hot tea. Some hot tea to... to warm up. Cheesesteak. That sounds good. Whew. Unfortunately, I don't actually know any places that sell cheesesteak around here, but that sounds delicious. Ooh. Might be while I warm up a little bit. Oh my God. Okay, so... in the wake of the end of the Trails in the Sky remake, I have a mighty need to continue that series, but we're gonna wait till Thursday. Get really intense into the game warm up. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Some game, some tea, a good night indoors. So let me go ahead and launch this. I set it up earlier, so it should play nice. And I'm going to do you the favor and turn the game sound down to almost off, because this game is from 1991, made for MS-DOS. And of course, DOS games back in the day use beeps and boops as sound effects. Now the bad news is, in the modern day with modern sound cards, those beeps and boops be extremely grating on the ears. Watch this. We have Eye of the Beholder. For it. Wait for it. Aha! It may be fate. This game actually features a minimal amount of sound. I've got to be very careful with the game's sound audio because it gets a little grating at times, but an official advanced Dungeons and Dragons computer product. Eye of the Beholder, a Legends series fantasy role-playing game saga. We, the Lords of Waterdeep, have gathered to purge our city of an ancient evil. Look at this. Handmade pixelated graphics. Give call to the heroes of the land and let us choose our champions. Master. So keep you company as you play and maybe not die. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Jack. I think they have found a solution. Now this aesthetic. I love this. This is like peak technological limitations breeding creativity. Ah, yes, perfect. Good timing. We commission you to find the nature of this evil and destroy it if you are able to. Prepare for the dangerous dirty. The dagger. Ah, a spell book. A sword. And prayers to the gods. You need all of these tools to make it any kind of progress in this game. Now these games can be very cutthroat. Begin your search below the city. I believe the city is Waterdeep, which is Forgotten Realms, of course, the world of Faerun. We have them. And of course, we have a cave-in. Typical. I saw my first time I found you was playing Fear the Fat. That's right. I was playing Fear the Fathom. I was playing the one with the imposter landlord, if I remember right. That wasn't too long after I started. Do I seem more confident in myself compared to back then? I feel like I'm more confident in how I speak and the like. That wasn't too long after I had started streaming, because I started streaming technically January. It's technically been a year, but at the same time, I didn't consistently start streaming until like March or April, I want to say. Started to talk a lot more. Okay, perfect. Good. So I am making progress. A little more confident in my speech. And I still want to. I think I have one more Fear the Fathom game to go through, I think, because I ended up getting the entire series because I really enjoyed those short and sweet kind of. Oh, that's right. This game doesn't feature any music, so let me turn the background back on. Like I said, I have one more Fears the Fathom game to go through because I ended up buying this series because I really enjoyed the short and sweet kind of horror games like that. I think they don't overstay their welcome, which I really like, and the scares are good too. Made me scream like a little girl. Do enjoy horror games. I actually I watched it when you were playing the what's it called? Kenki Spiritual Affairs Bureau? I think that's what you were playing. Did you end up beating that game? I played that game last October. That game was fucking hilarious. I love that game. I got a little heavier on the subject matter than I was expecting, but it was definitely an experience to see. It's really funny early on, especially. Exit to DOS. Start a new party little game. So I've actually already made a party. These games can be really brutal in their character creation. Nowadays in RPGs, when you make a character, you can pretty much dump all your points into one stat and you have something that works. In this game, that's not going to be the case. This is AD&D, uses THACO rules, and of course THACO is a bit of a different way of looking at the math behind attacking somebody. So I've already made a party, like this at the load game. We have a little map which will show where we are in relation to dungeon. Now, this game uses a mix of mouse and keyboard. Of course, there's no controllers involved. If I want to move forward, I have to use the mouse key, so one of my arms is actually crossed over onto my keyboard. You might hear me typing a little bit. And we're going to use our mouse to move, or sorry, rather to turn. We have our 4 party members. We have our fighter, hero. We have our, a note, it looks like. Commission letter to Mark taken. Read that later. We have our dwarf, Ozar. A powerful Gimli-type fighter. This will be our front line. We have Lucille, an elf cleric. It's going to be our upkeep of our HP. We have Willow. She is a gnome mage. Now, the stats on these characters. In this version of the game, one can adjust manually these stats of the characters. And in this game, the only stats that matter are strength, your constitution, your dexterity, and I believe your wisdom. Intelligence, strangely enough, is usually the stat that you want to max out on your casters, but in this game, I don't believe it does anything. It's actually a useless stat. So is charisma. There's no Riz in this game. There's no talking to people in this game, so charisma is a useless stat in this game. And obviously at the time, you might not have been able to figure that out without extensive testing, but this game is 35 years old. But that information is readily available. So I actually want to turn back around because we have rocks. And rocks. We're going to be throwing a lot of rocks. our mage and our cleric, I don't know if they start with spells, so I'm gonna hit camp. Try spells. Ah, that's what they do. We get 2 casts, so these are your spell levels. So you start level 3, so she has 2 level 1 spell casts and 1 level 2 spell cast. It's a little bit easier to keep track of in this game. It's a little simplified, but it follows AD&D rules. And AD&D rules are known to be very, very unforgiving would be the best way to put it. Let me adjust the sound right here real fast. If you die, you die. And early on we have no way to res. Very little ways to heal. So another thing that is going to be common amongst a game like this from back in the day is going to be save scumming. We're going to have her memorize her acid arrow. And I suppose a magic missile. We'll take 2 casts of magic missile. Okay. Pray for spells for Lucille. She has 4 level 1 casts, so for my sanity, we're going to dump it all into Cure Light Wounds. Let's see. 2. Ah, okay. So we also have Old Person in 8. I don't remember what 8 does. Flame Blade's gonna be a damage up. And I don't think it acts as a magic weapon, so that means no accuracy up for our fighters. Old Person... I'm searching my memory right now. I'm trying to remember if Old Person gives you an automatic crit or not. I don't know if it does in this game. I remember it does in the tabletop. Old Person. We'll take a... Actually, we'll take a... We'll take a... one... I guess there's no way to... Clear? There we go. We'll take 1 aid to see what it does at the very end. Is it? Okay. And we need to rest in order for them to actually commit to memorizing these spells for the day. Rest the party. They'll gain their spell charges. Good. Now our fighter here, hero, has named No. Commission Letter of Mark. This document is a binding commission of service to the Lords and Sovereign City of Waterdeep. Bearers of this document are agents of the Lords of Waterdeep and are granted full rights of passage beneath the City of Waterdeep. Saying City of Waterdeep a lot. And he who dare interfere risks the full penalty of our wrath. Information has been presented to us that there is a plot afoot in our city. Evidence points to the sewers that run beneath Waterdeep. We had no information about the exact nature of the threat, but we feel the urgency is grave. We commission you to find the nature of the danger and to destroy it if you are able. Finally, take a sip of my tea. You are granted full rights of mark. All treasures, artifacts, or other valuables are yours by right of conquest. This writ is made legal and binding by our mark on the 5th day of Marpanoth, in the Year of Shadows. It's a little blurb of lore. Now, my experience with Dungeons and Dragons is going to almost entirely be in 4th edition and a little bit of 5th edition. I'm a 4th edition baby. So here we have a skeleton here, and we have this little grate here. Something scurries deeper into the floor drain. Lockpicks. I'm gonna give those to our human fighter. These are rations. I don't know if these are consumed over time. As you can see, our stat arrays, Wisdom, Dex, Constitution, Charisma is dumped. We have an armor class of 6. Oh yes. So in AD&D, you have a rule called THAC, T-H-A-C, 0. And that is to hit armor class of 0. It's a little weird because nowadays the idea is, in most RPGs, is you want your armor class to be as high as possible. Whether for diminished damage or to, in some RPGs, a chance to hit. What THAC is how high you have to roll in order to hit an AC of 0. The best way to wrap your mind around it is consider if you have a THAC of 16 attacking we'll say a goblin with an AC of 10. -6 is going to be 10. You need to roll 10 or higher in order to hit. Lord Persinger, it's good to see you, man. I tried this game not too long ago. It's slightly hard to get into. Yes, that's fully my expectation for this game. I happen to have some leftover Steam funds from Christmas time, and I saw that all of these ancient D&D games were on sale, so I decided to pick them up. Now, these games are hard to get into, but even though they're hard, and that's another thing too, is we're gonna be hitting this button a lot, the save game, because save scumming is a staple for these ancient RPGs. Ah, what is that? Kill it! He's dead. He's already dead. And the fact that it's AD&D already tells me everything I need to know. As I say, it's gonna be very fucking annoying. First comic was better than mine. Well, that goblin, he didn't have a very good time, or whatever the hell that thing was. I swung my sword and he died. And this game is interesting. This game is actually based less on wizardry, gameplay-wise, and more on Might and Magic. Might and Magic was the first-person dungeon crawler experience that did this kind of. You'd usually hit right-click to use your weapons. Oh, yes, that's right. There's also so your backline, unless they have a spear or some kind of reach weapon, they can't actually reach what's in front of everybody. So what you do is you swap them, swing, swap back. And Willow here has knives. You can just throw them. Throw knives. It's beyond the store. This game does not feature any soundtrack. Not necessarily. I believe the only soundtrack in this game is in the character creation menu. And of course the intro. The slimy, smelly drain pipe reveals nothing. The Sega CD version of this game, which was released in 1993, does in fact have a soundtrack to it. Which I believe it was ported by Japanese developers, because I think the Sega CD soundtrack artists were Japanese men, I believe. I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong on a lot of things. Also, interestingly enough, this game was developed by Westwood Studios? I think it's Westwood Studios, or maybe Westwood Associates. Westwood Associates, or Westwood Studios, rather, are probably, you might consider, the father of the modern RTS. Because they made a game called Dune 2. Dune, of course, being the sci-fi, the greatest sci-fi stories ever written. I think it was the 60s, and is now having its own very large budget feature films being made currently. Shit. Okay, easy. Slash. Another one. Throw the knife. Don't want me to slash. Miss. Flash. Nice. Safe away. Missed. Missed again. I think we're trapped in a corner. Slash. Miss. Flash. And dead. Very nice. But Dune 2, after we slaughtered all these goblins, is one of the more... It's probably the closest thing to the modern RTS that we have. The creator of Dune 2, the video game, not Dune itself, but the video game, went on to create Command & Conquer. And Dune 2 also set up the, would be, I guess the gameplay premise would be the best way to put it, for the original Warcraft, Orcs and Humans, and also... Oh, that's a scroll. Warcraft and Age of Empires from back in the day. So happy with the Dune movie. They are very good movies. He's on the ground because I want the others to pick them up. I actually don't know if I can trade, but Let's detect magic. We'll give that to Willow. And we're gonna give Willow our other knives too. We'll have lots of stuff to throw. Now, Dune 2 wasn't the first RTS by any means. But again, the gameplay premise, you know, start with your HQ building, go and send out some little dudes to go run around and collect resources, bring them back, and then use those resources to build around your HQ building. Definitely started in Dune 2. It would show up in, again, Warcraft 1, Age of Empires, and Command & Conquer. Command & Conquer is the same company that made Dune 2. So this is a plate on the floor. Whenever you guys can see that. My setup's a little different for this game just because some very strange aspect ratios. I actually want to put this rock there. In this real-time combat, apparently I did not put the rock on the plate. Well, if it only opens that door, I guess it doesn't matter. Because we're not going back. Rations. Our fighter carry most of the rations. Now, I haven't played most of the Might and Magic games. Although in the future, I do want to stream some of the later ones. Might and Magic 1 is an interesting experience, to say the least. A lot of these old dungeon crawlers are interesting experiences because of the limitations of the technology at the time. I'm sure back in the day, 1991, if you saw this on your home computer, if you were fortunate to have a home computer at the time, this would have blew your little mind off. Goblins, here they come. Throw the rock. Hit one. Swinging. Okay, duck back a bit. Miss. Swing. Kill. Okay. Miss. Damn. Got him. And dead. Nice. Dark Messiah Might and Magic is a classic on Xbox 360. It's still a classic. Dark Messiah, along with other games like it, hold that spirit of old school dungeon crawlers into modern gameplay sensibilities. Also, Might and Magic still has some of the best manipulation of enemies and usage of environmental hazards. There's still fond memories of kicking orcs into like spike pits and off of cliffs and stuff. Or if you had a mage, you had like the ice spell that made the floor all slippery, and then they'd walk on it and their ragdoll would slide along into whatever. First time I got to be evil was so much fun. Yeah, that's another thing too. These games, back in the day, there's alignments in this game, but I don't know if they really matter all that much. Typically these old games, unless it's like a CRPG, alignment is like nothing. It might affect like gear drops or something like that, or gear usage rather is what I should say. I'm gonna go back here. Where is my rock? There's a way to... I guess I have to be standing on it and then put the rock down. Being evil was in a lot of RPGs. I had a lot of fun doing. If it wasn't something like Dark Messiah, it'd be something like KOTOR, like Knights of the Republic, playing as a Sith, joining the dark side. And I don't think these goblins can see me, so once I turn this corner... Nice, got a sneak attack at one. Come here, you little bastards. I guess they didn't notice that I cut off the head of one of their friends. Come here. Wander back. Am I gonna wander back? Oh, I see, I went the wrong way. I turned the wrong way. Miss. It can be a little disorienting disorientating to maneuver here. No. More daggers for Willow. And some rations, looks like. Okay, this room has more rations. An excellent modern take on this might and magic, and I guess by extension D&D game would be The Legend of Grimrock. Plays basically exactly the same. Okay, let's just close the door. Closed. Got my rock. Go back this way. Have a look at our map. And for you guys, the map is on the left, top left. Lucille's gained a level of experience. Nice. That's our cleric. I hope she can learn some kind of res spell promptly, but I don't. I'm not I don't remember the spell lists for AD&D. And while these games, D&D, more based on might and magic gameplay, they kept that real-time aspect. Okay, not this way. Let me have a look at the map again. We have a door here. We also have a door way to the west. So let's see what's behind this door. I hope this is a good time to save scum. I hope this door doesn't close behind me, because I'd like to explore the entirety of these floors. Again, these games can be very... The hell is that? Get a worm? Well, he's dead now. These games can be really unforgiving. My stats are really solid on my characters. It's not going to make that big of a difference, though, to be quite frank. Again, these games can be very unforgiving. I'm still missing. Strafing is a vital part. There we go. Ah, arrows. Of course, wizardry kept this rune is unrecognized. I wonder if I can, I don't think I have any spells that can read it. Also, welcome, Zarksic. Yeah, you're gonna enjoy this, Zarksic. This is one of those things I was testing the other night when I was going through all those games. I was writing down which ones I think I could feasibly stream, because some of them did not like to, even though they were bundled together and packages being able to run on modern systems. Some of them did not want to play nice with my computers. So a shield, very nice. So this can go in our offhand. That will lower our AC further, correct? Oh yeah, my armor class is 5. That's very good. So in Thacker rules, the lower your AC, the better. Old Wizardry used Thacker rules as well. I don't know if my magic did or not. I feel an ocular migraine going on. Yeah. I tried to minimize it because this game has some weird aspect ratios, but makes for a good layout to have the another secret door. Because we've looped around. We have a what's this? I have to hit escape. There we go. Burps. Oh. There we go. Ozar took a little bite out of him. No, he's fine. He's a dwarf. He can handle it. Ooh, careful, careful. Oh my god. There we go. There's gonna be a lot of strafing back and forth in this game. There we go. Oh, miss on Ozar. Ozar with the beheading of this worm. I'm gonna map everything on the map. Go. Jeez. Come on, Goblin. No, he's not gonna turn. We're gonna go back. Pick up. And they're dead. Nice. Our fighters are gonna be carrying a lot of this early on because our mages, our mage and our cleric, they don't know shit. They don't know how to cast anything other than magic missiles and cure light wounds. That's nice. So, another aspect of these old games is that the best time to rest is when you're out of spellcasts. Given that Lucille has some healing capabilities, even at level 3, which is what you start at, I'm gonna save, but not rest yet. I don't know if resting heals you up. I hope it does, because that'll make this go out a little bit smoother. Ah, here's the exit for the floor. And a button. Doesn't seem to do anything. Okay. I see. So, luckily we have all these rocks. There we go. On the page of the symbol, find line 6, enter word 3. Ah, yes. So this, what this little bit of, ancient wizardry is a, DRM. This is a DRM, this is how they made sure you didn't, you weren't silly in this game, because games used to have little books come with them called manuals. They were filled with words. So many little words telling you about the world you're gonna play in. So I can actually just, it's my understanding I can actually just put any word into this and it'll work, because of course I don't have any manuals for this game. It's a digital download. So I'm gonna put ass. And there you go. Going down. Excellent. We have a key. That on hero. Okay, so 3 doorways. 3. And of course, my rule is always left. Oh, I see. They all take a key. Also, welcome, Alice. How was your weekend? I only have 1 key, though. So we're going to use the key on this door. Let's see what it does. Go. Aha. Nothing in the pipe. This door is... Sorry. Ah, here we go. Button. The door appears stuck. Well, that's not good, is it? Now, I'm curious if this is one of those things one would need to save scum. The lock appears jammed. Is the key gone? The key is gone. I don't know if this is a puzzle. Oh, there we go. The party tries to force the door and fails. The party forces the door. Ah, okay. Must be a strength check. Luckily, we have a fighter, a human fighter, and a dwarf fighter. Strong men, too. Skeleton! Arr! He's dead. Got a hit on oversight, but we're alright. I see Doomguide is leaving his minions wandering around in this dungeon. No one's able to pry this door open. There's no button. Looks like it. Okay. We'll continue this way. What's this? Potion. My assumption it's a healing potion. I don't know if there's like weird potions in this game. I have no idea. I haven't the faintest idea. I'm going into this shit blind. What an odd carving in place. It's like a dagger? I don't know what the hell that is. Slut? Go back the other way. No. No, these are all, yeah, okay. I'm going to try. Maybe this fits in here? It does fit in theirs. Another button. Ah, secret wall. Empty chamber. I don't like the sounds of this. I'm gonna stick to the corners. Nothing. Any buttons on the walls? There we go. There's a button here. Ah, another secret passageway. And a game like this is gonna be filled with this stuff. This game does not hold your hand. This genre in general doesn't like to hold your hand, especially for the time. I don't see any buttons. See this door? Can I pry it open? I can. Zombie! And he's dead. Cut down in his prime by yours truly. Nothing. Okay, so high strength is definitely helpful when you can pry open these doors. which is a shame because I dumped the strength on my casters for immersion. Rations. Here's some those are. Potion of giant strength. That sounds like it'd be funny on the dwarf. Another silver key. Perfect. Okay. Another silver key for one of these other doors. This is probably a good time to save. Save scum often. Wrong way. Well, I actually tested some of the Might and Magic games on some of my on my computer. 1 through like 3, as far as I'm concerned, are lost causes. Unless I'm in a very, very specific mood for pain. And as Zarksic put it, ocular migraines. But Heroes 4 and on, much more palatable, shall we say. Something with the wizardry games. Now, the Surtech wizardry games, that is to say, the ones that were made in America, you can actually get the original one remade on Steam, which is probably the definitive way to play it, just for gameplay's sake. You can actually disable some of the, or rather enable quality of life features in that game, which is very helpful. Because those games can be very grindy. Whether you're looking for just a straight dungeon experience, that is a pit. I don't want to step on that. What's this? Yeah, that covers the pit, but that doesn't mean it's safe. Another safe scum spot. Wizardry 6 is where I would say the games are, again, more palatable. 6 in specifically the Super Nintendo version. The Super Nintendo version was developed in Japan. Its artwork and its graphics are a lot nicer to look at instead of using DOS pixels, very poorly made DOS pixels in the Western version. Oh fuck. And the walls. There's a ladder here. Down. Ah, the pit leads down here. Okay. Wizardry 7 is also similar to this in terms of style and substance, shall we say. Potion of healing. Perfect. On the front line as well. I don't know what the screen potion's for. I'm not going to test it until I save scum. Wizardry 8 actually felt like a lot of fun and an interesting take on the series. It's still turn-based. As I said before, Wizardry stayed turn-based while Might and Magic went for the real-time combat. But it also loses the grid aspect, and you're actually able to move around freely on the map. Okay, so secret buttons to get across the pit. Wizardry 8 also features party banter, which is interesting to me. Usually in these types of games, your party is basically just silent. There's just a bunch of stats running around. You know. Okay, if I interact with this, is this... Well, this returns, but now I can't get around the corner, so... Anything changed down here? No, nothing changed. What I'd like to do, one of my favorite aspects of these types of games, you can't do it in this one, but is custom portraits. You can filling it with memes, party full of memes, custom art. Okay, I'm gonna save some here. I wonder what happens if I fall into the pit. What it may boil down to is I actually took the wrong door. I'm supposed to take the next door first, and then come back to this one. Oh, I took some damage, but we're okay. Way across. What if I throw something? Oh, I see. There is a plate back there. Okay. Okay, well, we'll give it a good old-fashioned... Nice! There we go. Problem solved. Got a rock back. Hello? Okay, more pits. Pits is a button on the wall. I don't know what this does. Not anything? Not. It may reveal something though if I leave a rock on it. Oh, I see. It enables that. Okay. Nothing else changes, it looks like, so. A trap. Another pit appeared. This one's gone. Okay. Rations. Nothing on the walls. There seems to be movement inside this floor drain. Well, that's not ominous. So if these pits appear, the question is, where do they lead to? This may kill me. That's what we're gonna save again. I don't know if there's death pits. The previous pits only dropped us down one floor. Okay. I think we're okay. Okay, just drop us down to the trap room. So what we're looking for now then is a silver key. These all lead back that trap floor. But what about? Let me look at the map here. So there's something in the corner to the northwest. Ah, and we leveled up. Nice. More rations and the silver key. Perfect. I don't know if you need to sleep in order to level up. We're just gonna take the fall here. Oh, there we go. We're okay. Let's go back to the stairs. Wrong way. There we go. They're going to rest. Wow, so resting does heal. Very nice. This would be one of those things that you kind of don't see this much anymore in later RPGs at the same time. I don't think there's resting in Grimrock, or at least it's not in Grimrock 1. Yeah, everybody's healed up. Save. We have the final door stage. Who's holding my key? There it is. 3 doors, 3 keys. Did I miss something here? No, that's just dead end. I'm trying to keep an eye on this map. Crossroads. What's this? Sling. Ooh. A sling with no bullets. Okay. Don't know if we need rocks to use this. A hollow laughter echoes faintly. Trap room. Of course. Luckily we have a dagger. I'm assuming it fits in here. A whispering voice says illusion. Solid illusion. What the hell does that mean? What is he talking about? Can I not put the... No, we can't put that there. But also go in there. The sling? Nope. The arrow. It looks like a knife. But you can't put anything in there. Okay. With the scroll. Nope. Okay. I don't know if this is one of those puzzles where you'd have to use... Oh, you use F keys to go through the party. Detect magic might help. So I think Lucille knows it, but we need to actually memorize these spells. Also, we can describe armor. Spell. Perfect. It does have detect magic. Perfect. Let's go to put a point in there. And then we have the rest. Now, sometimes in these old RPGs, some of the more fluff kind of utility spells are completely and utterly worthless. They're literally just there for fluff. They don't actually help you, though, in any discernible way. Attack magic. Thing. Trapped in this stupid... Okay, something goes in here. Is it a sword? No. Can I smash it? No. I swear the dagger goes there, but it doesn't want to fit like it did last time. You like wounds, hold. It may very well be that the party's going to suffocate in this room, and that's the end of that run. Luckily, I saved Scum before. Unless I'm missing something. Scroll to detect magic. Nah. Nah. There's a little bless. Nah. Detect magic is expired. Oh! Oh, was it an illusory wall? The wall is not actually there. I see. I see. That's quite the trick to play on somebody. I have to save that one for a D&D campaign. Let's go this way. There's nothing there. Dead end. This looks like a travel marker. Whatever that means. Okay, what about this way? I'm always left. This is an orc rune of passage. Aha! Oh, you can actually walk through it. Okay, so arrows. There are no bows. I don't know if bows and slings. Oh, there's 2 runes of. Oh, okay. Come on. Aha. I don't know if they scale with strength. So there's a lot of illusory wall. Did you see that? Look at the map. Trap. Okay. Trap tiles. The trap tiles warp you around like it's a fucking Pac-Man game. There's no way back, it looks like. I am forced onto the east side of this room. Okay. Ah, rations. Mr. Willow. Another silver key. Nothing else. Yeah, nothing else in this room. Sometimes I laugh at the foolish boy that I was, because I remember being very dismissive of D&D when I was initially offered to play it. You might not be able to guess who to play with me. It was Doomguide, who got me into this high fantasy nonsense. Where to go? This way. Oh no. I'm gonna try and walk in every wall from now on. My first character was an orc. Well, a half orc, named Ronak. I actually played him as a ranger. Now, again, I am a 4th edition baby. That's the primary form of D&D that I had played. So worlds are going to be a little different than classical ones. Ah, here we go. This is the way through. I see. There's another marker back here. I think. It's not somewhere. Goes to these. I see it. This way? There's this way. Yes. I picked a ranger because I found this arts piece of a green man with tusks. He looked like human other than the tusks. But he was dual wielding long swords. And that was the coolest shit to me that I could think of at the time. What's this? This is Mage School of Shield. This will be helpful on. Hello? Actually gonna memorize spells. Actually, no, we're not gonna memorize spells. We're gonna describe scrolls. She already knows the spells. Okay, we're gonna rest though. Someone keeps wrecking the market with Duranium Mars and Sword in 15 knowledge plus to it's good to be a goblin. Play the market. Always a good way to pass the time in an MMO. Just get rich. Uh-oh. Another trap room. But we have more exits this time. We can go back the way we came in, so go this way. Whoa! Lucille uses the power to turn on dead. He's a coward! Slay them. Turn on dead's very powerful. Get back here. And he's dead. Okay, so she auto-uses turn on dead. That's a level up thing. She might not have had it earlier. I don't remember what level they get in AD&D. But as I was saying, I picked a ranger because I wanted to dual wield swords. That campaign didn't last very long though. I think there was 5 of us playing at the time. 4 players and a DM. Dagger fits. Okay, what's it open? Is there another one? Okay, the dagger's in there. What did that unlock? Let me look at the map here. Ah, must be north and then west. Wrong way. Oh, this tile. Okay, this tile right here spins you around. You step on it. Okay. Well, disorientation. I would have noticed that without this built-in auto map. Let's go ahead and save. Exit. Okay. Did something change here? Oh, a new pathway. Okay. Need to be wary of monsters roaming around. It's a stone dagger. Interesting. That's probably important. Okay, nothing else here. What I need to do is I need to make more music. The song was made by yours truly. I made it specifically as a loop, so it'll go with these old games, because a lot of these old games don't even have music. Okay, this one, the only music that was in it was in the character creation screen. Perfectly matched. Okay, so there's a door here. Hallway here. This is a little sus. Let's investigate this door. I'm gonna assume the stone dagger goes here. Maybe? No, not the stone dagger. What about a regular dagger? Regular dagger it's special quest for this level. What's that mean? Rations. Okay. Potion of extra heal. You might be competing with a bot, Zarksic. Or I say competing, but rather you're taking advantage of a bot. Let's do. I see the plate here, but no clickies, so I'll leave a rock here. There we go. Leave a rock right there and continue on our merry way. What the fuck is that? I'm a little wary of magic in these old games, because you never know what they're gonna do. Let's go ahead and save. Let's save some before I step into the light. This bright pink sparkly light. Oh! Rats? This carving looks familiar. It looks like an arrow, but R-A-T-S. Oh, he's left. A dead end. Okay. Rats. Does it take me back? Ooh, it does. Ah, okay, so it's just a teleport tile. Seen that door, but this level's very big. Okay. This lock requires a key. Is that where the stone dagger goes? No, we need an actual key. What about this? Doesn't fit. Yeah. And what is this way? It ends. Nothing. As I was saying, that campaign didn't last very long where I played my half-orc. But it definitely kicked off my love for D&D. Something about that tabletop just hits different. But other tabletops, rather. I mean, they're all capable of the same thing, but I think it was the established lore and the... Oh. Nice turn on dead. Wanted to play, so we hit him. Free. Got him. Nice. My next character after that, after Ronok, was a warlock. Ah, here we go. And I named him Leopold. About Doomsday, you were reminiscing about this stuff. That game lasted a little bit longer. Now, you've probably heard of prestige classes, especially with some of the older D&D games like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. In 4th edition, they were called Paragon classes. Ah, boots. Who doesn't have boots? Here's got boots. Ozar's got boots. The Still and Will do not have boots. Some boots. Nice. It was around that time, I actually got my hands on a copy of, I got my hands on two different, books. But they were for 3.5 edition. One was the Book of Vile Darkness. The other was the Lords of Madness. Book of Aberrations. And that was where I learned about the most evil creatures they ever thought of for Dungeons and Dragons. Including, not limited to, another teleport tile? Is that what I saw? Oh yeah, okay. We've looped back around to where we were. Strange tile. I don't remember the Paragon path I had picked for that warlock. He was a Star Pact warlock. And a Star Pact warlock is basically the Lovecraft warlock. They make a pact with stars, and in D&D terms, what that means is they make a pact with the Far Realms. The wrong stars, as it were. And I was so excited to have the Book of Vile Darkness and the Book of Aberrations. That was where I learned about zombies. It's dead. That's where I learned about mind flayers and aboleths. And of course, beholders. And beholders are still the coolest shit to me. Beholders are basically, if you're not aware what a beholder is a floating eyeball with a big mouth. He's covered in these little stalks that have more eyeballs. And each of these eyeballs has the ability to cast a spell. Usually very high level and very destructive. You often see art of them firing lasers. A very large barrage of lasers. Each laser could do something different. They could disintegrate your armor. It could disintegrate you. Turn you to stone or brainwash you. Just kind of clear all this out. Ha. It's very helpful having a cleric against undead. In addition, beholders are completely and utterly full of themselves. Beholders are so full of themselves that beholders don't even like other beholders, even though there's beholder cities. A beholder that is not themselves is an abomination that needs to be eaten properly. Okay, let me study this map for a second. So we hit all of the northeastern. I missed a door. Back the other. This needs a special key. I'm going to assume it's on the western side. We use this teleport tile. I'm actually quite enjoying this a lot. Reminds me a lot of Grimrock. I guess Grimrock should remind me of this. But every time after whenever I play Dungeons and Dragons, I always look forward. I will always ask, is there a beholder in this campaign somewhere? Can I fight it? Can I kill it? Well, I guess killing it is up in the air and more up to the dice than I am, but go probably open this door. But they are just rotten bastards to the core. Go. Put this rock here. And I love it. The beholders are monsters. They are just the ultimate monster to me in my head. There we go. A lot of skeletons. Nice. Turn on dead. Get them to run back into this corner. Come here, skellies. Oh, they're turning to fight now, but nice. This one down. This one's he's stuck in the corner. He's been a bad boy. This skeleton's been a very, very naughty skeleton. Spank. And now he's dead. Ah, an axe. Zombies. Nice. Man, a cleric is like goated for this level. I don't know if there's other enemies other than undead here, but she is doing in work. Lucille is destroying these undead with her turn undead spell, which is good. That's what I want clerics to do. Use turn undead. There's no better feeling. I see something. There's something around the corner. Oh, what's this? Potion of healing. My players are neat. They're a little bit annoying because in earlier editions they actually drained your level. They drained stats too. And these are permanent drains that they would feed on. I think we actually, in that campaign that I played my Warlock in, I think someone actually got stat drained. They had their intelligence completely and utterly drained for a while. It took a good while to actually get him back to normal. Come here. Nice. Lucille. Oh, I missed. Get back here. Come here. Don't run away. There we go. New path opens. Let's save here. I don't recall if I've ever actually fought. I ended up fighting a beholder in a campaign. I know we fought mind flayers. I definitely fought mind flayers. I don't think I fought aboleths. Those are the fish monsters. The fish aberrants. I'd have to ask Doom if he ever had a beholder. I feel like he did. I just can't quite remember how we loop back around. Okay, so I'm actually missing... Ah, there it is. Here. Right here. Oh, another dead end. Okay, let me study this map for a second. So there's a wall on the east side I haven't hit. I think I hit all the buttons on the left side. We still have the key, or we're missing a key for the stone dagger. I don't think it went to that door in the east. try. Some of the map has changed a bit. I think hitting those buttons has warped the dungeon a bit. Not. Okay, so... Oh. Wisconsin. We're not dead? Nice. And he's dead. Okay. Right here. Doesn't work. Okay, so I am missing... Oh, shit. The hell was that? Oh, there he is! No, he hit Willow. We're good. Front line. I don't want to lose my mage. Okay. Take a breather. Save. Now my backline does have much lower HP than my front line, so let's go ahead and rest. There's a very sizable chance that Willow or Lucille can get one shot if I'm not careful. Maybe my back turn was not a good idea. Okay, so there's actually a tile in the middle that I may have missed. It's teleportation. Here? Nope, that's just an empty tile. Okay. Did I... Okay, the only one I could see is on the east side. Okay, so I'll have to ask him if he ever put a beholder in his campaign. Because I know for a fact I put some in mine. I actually had a very brief quest. We like to do, I guess we call them seasonal quests, if you will. We'll have like a Christmas themed quest or like a Halloween themed one. Because we would play once a week, sometimes twice a week, but usually once a week. Like one night out of the week to play. Okay, there's nothing. So the quest was designed to be completed in 4 sessions, give or take. So usually it was maybe 3 sessions and then get another one for that. Let's go here. To find a place where this carving goes in. But I actually had a beholder take a take up space in a massive evergreen tree. Some Eladrin, which are Feywild elves, I guess. Permanent Feywild elves. And the bulbs on the tree were not like bulbs, like decorations you would see on a Christmas tree. They were actually little eyeballs. It's hidden by the lenses of their eyes. And that tree had been there for 3 or 4 seasonals, and I'd be 3 or 4 years into that campaign. But I'd always had a beholder in it. And then when I decided the time was right, because my beholder's like late game enemies, it sprung an attack on the Eladrin Christmas town built around it. Oh, okay. When I hit this, the dungeon shifts. Nothing really of note, though. I think I hit everything. But there is... Okay. This is another part of these games that can be a little... You might call it tedious. It's investigation. Okay, no. That changed. This just opens the door. Nothing else changes. Okay. And this only changes this dungeon. Lots of dead ends. Nothing new, though. Okay. The other thing is this rock. Okay, this is just for this door. So let's go back upstairs, if we can. No way down from that side, so it's gotta take the long way. So here's the... There's stairs that go up. There's actually stairs that go down as well. So let's save. I'm gonna check out. I think this is just the trap room. I don't think this actually goes anywhere. Yeah, this is the trap room. Okay. Did I miss anything upstairs? It doesn't look like it. Looks like I got everything. So what am I missing? We did the trap room with the pitfalls. We did the... two. Okay. There's a pit here, or is this a step? No, it's a step. I have to wonder if some of these if these rations are actually used for anything, because I haven't found a use for them yet. I don't think they're being... I can't tell if they're being consumed when I rest or not. That's right, this tile likes to turn you when you step on it. Let's go back here. This is one of those things that can be a little tedious as exploration. Essentially, these floors can be basically giant puzzles. My mind tells me I'm missing something. Are you winning, son? I have slaughtered everything that has crossed paths with me. The bad news is, my brain is too small to figure out where the key is on this floor. No, no. Nope. Now this is another thing. Because there was trap walls, there could be more trap walls. So you have to go manually hit every single wall, run into everything. You just might pop through one of them. No, 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 no. Ah. Give me here. Have your spanking, zombie. And you're dead. So that button on the west side changes this area. Ooh. Lots of zombies. Luckily they're afraid of my cleric. But it has to be more than just shuffling hallways around, right? This is a button I've missed. Like, this hallway is cut off once you hit that button on the west side. You can't pry this door open. Oh, that's right. This is where the button is. No rock here. Nothing inside this room. Right, this button here. So it's possible I missed something while it's... We'll call this layout A. This will be layout B. So in layout B, I may have missed something. What have I missed? It is hidden. Nothing, nothing. 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 I was like, why can't I go that way? There's a zombie there. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Now, this isn't a game I'll probably see to the end, not anytime soon. What I am doing is this is basically training wheels for me because I saw a post. Ow. On Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it. Blue Sky. Those kinds of sites. A dungeon crawler called Undernauts Labyrinth of the Yomi is actually getting a sequel made called Demon Kill Demon. I would like to see. Here. There we go. And I have been itching to try a proper dungeon crawler and seeing it through the end. Now I actually have. Can I pick this lock? Only a thief can pick. Fuck, I don't have any thieves. I've been itching to play a proper dungeon crawl, and I did before a while back, but something else. I think Silent Hill came out and took all my attention off of it. But I really like that the Japanese dungeon crawlers have a larger aspect of story attached to them, and the writing is usually actually pretty solid. I think Undernauts would be a neat game to check out. Along with, of course, Trails in the Sky 2nd chapter, which I'll be starting on Thursday. Okay, I can't like smash this thing, right? No, okay. Okay, so I have this potion of giant strength. I don't know if that will help. It might. It might not. Let's try. Is this one? That's healing. Giant strength. Let's try it. Bizarre. No, you can't pry it open. Okay. That's fine. We'll load that game. Alright. We still have our potion. It's this key right here. What am I missing? Get back here. There we go. Where am I missing this key? But as I was saying, I think Undernauts would be something I'd like to try out on stream and play it like front to back, not just like dabble in it. I mean, actually commit to it. Because I had a blast playing the Trails remake and seeing it front to back. Down here. Let me study this map for a second, so. The only thing I could think of is that one of the pits and the pitfalls leads somewhere different. That isn't in the pitfall room. So I'm gonna try it. Because there's no buttons or anything else around. I should have taken teleporter, but whatever. All the way back to the pit room. Don't have my rock, but I do have a sling. Now, the only bad news is that the Demon Kill Demon has only been announced to Switch. I hope it makes a. I hope it comes the same. I don't see why they wouldn't port it. They have all their other games on there, the Excellence. RPG makers. Okay. I'm curious if this pit right here leads somewhere different. It's not, okay. And it's possible one of these buttons that lets you continue has changed something else. I don't see any changes on the map. Or do I? No, I don't. This is also a trap room. This just teleports you all over the place. Nothing. And some of those JRPG dungeon crawlers, they also have like almost visual novel aspects to them. If you're familiar with Persona, they have like the bonding with teammates and stuff like that. You get the little cutscenes talking to them and stuff, and choosing what you say to them. And like bonding with them usually gives you like additional buffs during combat. Audronauts always looked interesting to me. Essentially, a dungeon appears underneath Tokyo, I think? City of Tokyo? And there's something down there that's valuable. I don't remember what it is, but there's something that's down there that's valuable to the companies in the area. So they start hiring students to brave the dangerous depths. And in exchange, they get like their student debts paid off, and they get to go to like school and shit. Just kind of fucked up when you think about it, but oh. The room seems to move. Oh. Oh, so this is a trap tile. Here we go. A new room. All right. 2, 3 doors, 4 doors, 5 doors. Is that it's 6 doors? Okay. All right. So okay. Save, because one of these doors might just fucking kill me. Save. Aim save. There's something behind this door. Okay. Come here. Oh. Nice. Straight from it. We're taking some damage. Okay, that's one skeleton down. Oh, careful, careful. There we go. 2 down. Okay, let's go ahead and rest. Heal up our front line a bit. So I might start Underknots next week. We are. Ah, there's a bow. My skeleton's down. Here's some axes. And a bow. I don't know how much use this is gonna get, but we'll hold on to it for now. This might be good on Lucille. He needs arrows though, so let's drop all those. Equip this. I should be swapping your back and forth. I suppose you notch these on her belts, I guess? She can hold on to the rock at the very least. Okay, can she fire this? She can't use it. It's okay. I guess she doesn't have the stats. What a shame. We'll hold on to it anyway. It might come in handy. Oh, God. Come here. See there, skeleton? There you go. Ah, helmets. Very nice. This goes here. Does this reduce my... AC? That does not. Okay. This is another strange aspect of old D&D that didn't really make sense to me. Your helmet doesn't do much. But you're not even old D&D, but this is modern D&D too. Your helmet is basically an accessory. It doesn't actually necessarily give any further protection. Unless there's something I'm missing. Oh, next door. Player gets goaded. Oh, that hurt quite a bit. Okay. Gotcha. Mage Scroll of Invisibility. Very nice. Let's grab that scroll. And rest. Now in Wizardry, all pieces of equipment, or at least the Japanese Wizardry games, all pieces of equipment gave you reduced your AC. I suppose technically the blank helmets in old D&D are basically... The idea would be that you'd enchant them somehow. I don't know if that's... This brick is very bright. Okay. Okay, there's the way out. I missed another door. I missed this door. Again. Swing and a miss. Swing and a miss. Oh, there we go. Lots of axes. I'm probably gonna have to drop these eventually. What I'd like to do is hold on to these for the stone tiles, the button tiles. Let's save here. Save game. We're almost at a point where I think I can feasibly start having Willow start spamming magic missile. Rise was how much she had. She has 3 casts, so put another one to magic missile. She still has magic or acid arrow. Put 2 and exit. I don't like the game so far. So this game, I can't say this game fills me with nostalgia because I wasn't alive when this game came out. But there's something about these crusty old MS-DOS style pixel art games. They really tickle my brain. I don't... Oh, I need to rest. I can't quite explain it. It's something about that like 80s style high fantasy that always fascinates me. Stuff like Conan the Barbarian, or Labyrinth with David Bowie, or Legend with Tim Curry, or Willow with Warwick Davis. Stuff like that always tickled me. And I can't believe I ever had it in me to dismiss. Oh, this leads back to the trap room. So what's this do? Oh, this just reveals it. I can't believe I ever had it in me to dismiss D&D in general. But I always liked high fantasy stuff. Or Tolkien style fantasy like Lord of the Rings. I think it might be the limitation of the technology at the time too that made the developers, they had to be creative with this kind of stuff to make this art or this UI, maybe this gameplay. It's like seeing the great grandfather of like Skyrim. Okay, so this teleports me around. So I don't think I found a key. I found a bow. I still have this stone dagger. I don't know what this is for. Now again, while I do enjoy this game, I don't think it's something I'm going to come back to soon. I might eventually, because I like deep diving into these ancient games that not a whole lot of people play anymore, for good reason. The quality of life nowadays is... There's more modern games if you want something like this to play. That'll play better. It'll be nicer on most modern machines. And again, the quality of life aspects are huge. Now, this game itself isn't very grindy. That would be a complaint I have with older games like this, is that they can be very grindy. No secret panels or anything in here. Which is why I would like to start Labyrinth of Yomi next week. Or Undernauts, rather, it's called. Especially with Demon Kill Demon coming out. Okay. This just goes back to... So has anything else changed? Studying the map. I suppose I can go and see if anything changed at that door. I actually equipped Willow with the... No, I fell. I actually equipped Willow with the stone dagger. I don't know if that makes a difference, though. Let's go ahead and go all the way back to the silver tile. So look forward. There we go. Why does it say rats? R-A-T-S, rats. What does that stand for? This item is not used in this way. Okay. Well, I would have expected to have found a key of some sort in that hidden chamber, but nothing, so I think I'm stuck. What time is it? Oh, I'll be ending soon anyway. But I have not found a key anywhere. Something is mad at me. Beltons. Like they hold their hands up and they run like, ah! Get out of my fucking way! I've got a mad cleric with them. She's turning us undead. Oh, that hurts. A little delay when moving. Strafing is still possible. That's one down. Oh, I missed everything. Okay. Come here. Oh, one more. One more run. There we go. Let's rest. If I wanted to play something like this, front to back, especially on stream, I would either pick Wizardry 8 or something like Might and Magic 8. Or even more modern, Legend of Grimrock is exactly like this. But that would be consideration for something a bit of a ways off. Okay, so this... Nothing in A, nothing in B. So what else can change? I want to say I missed something in those chambers that I found. This. Hit the button. Door shifts. Does it shift again? It does! Oh, okay. Save. I will say this, when it comes to these old style dungeon crawls, this is one of the better ones that holds up, I would say. Just because of its simplicity. Although it does use AD&D rules, you don't really need to know AD&D off the top of your head to play this. To get used to the UI, it's a little, it's actually kind of intuitive. Right-click your weapon, swing. Yep. You would, but these zombies are cowardly because they've been feared by the cleric. There you go, one. Hold still. Hold still. Two, okay. One more. Aha! The gold key! Our way forward! Finally. Okay, does this go anywhere else? It does not. Okay, it loops back around. Perfect. We'll be done with this level, this floor. To the rat store. Gold key. Aha, perfect. Right. Before we drop, we'll definitely save. We'll go a little bit longer. I have a long day ahead of me tomorrow. A long and cold day. Okay. Where the hell am I? Even if this goes into a corner, we'll see if it turns. Does this turn? There's to another door. Okay. I'll go back, because I don't want to break my rule of always going left. Always. Teleport. Oh, goodness. And no way back. That's good. Oh, does this take me back? It does. Okay, perfect. What are RATS stands for? Oh, rats. This is another weird aspect of these old fantasy games. This is a trap hallway? Is that what I'm seeing? Not, okay. Spoilers for like a, was it 30, 40-year-old game? The end of Might and Magic 1. The big twist was that, what the fuck is that? Is that a fish man? Oh! He's dead now! Hit Lucille. Ah, okay. This is the part of the game where your backline can be targeted, so I need to be wary here. Detect magic, hold person, aid. So I need her to start memorizing some more. Does she have any more spells? Slow poison. Here to aid spell. Okay. She'll need to sleep, but I have to sleep right away. Just mostly getting them ready for the next rest. Nothing this way. Okay. Yes, the end of Might and Magic 1, as it turns out, you're actually on a spaceship called Varn. The world is called Varn, V-A-R-N, but it was always spelled in all caps. This is not an accident. Varn stood for, like, vehicular aerial some nonsense. But Might, Magic, and other fantasy at the time had, like, that weird sci-fi aspect to them. Even in a lot of D&D settings. Not all of them, but some of them. The Gith, which most of you are probably, if you're not familiar with D&D, but you're familiar with Baldur's Gate 3, Lae'zel. Character Lae'zel is a Gith. In plenty of settings, the Gith are actually not just dimensional hoppers. They actually live in space. They travel on a silver spaceship. Okay, so I need keys. 2 keys for this door. And a few different worlds in D&D actually have them crash landing, oh god, as their backstory. Okay, the fishermen aren't too bad. It's when they cast I need to be very careful. Okay, this just loops around. Careful of that pit that just appeared out of nowhere. I heard a creak earlier. I don't know what that was. What the fuck is this? This hole looks like the inside of a jewel box. Does the dagger go here? Oh, okay. Go ahead and save. This will be ending soon. Game save. Perfect. Looks like the inside of a jewel box. Okay, so I need gems. I need to find gems in this dungeon. What's that? What the fuck is that? Maybe time to bust out the magic missile. hit him. I don't know what the hell that thing is though. What is that? A knoll? Easy, easy. He's got hella AC. I'm having trouble hitting him. I need another magic missile. His magic missile can't miss. That's why it's a missile. Hitting him. Oh, that hurt. There, got him. Oh, he dropped the mace. Nice. Okay. So... do I have to manually feed them? That's not what I meant to do. Okay. Can they eat? I see their food cage getting down. I have to... ah, okay, I see now. Just like a survival game. I love survival games. There is a time limit aspect, I suppose. That's probably why it randomly drops food everywhere. Okay. There's a few more in there. We ran out of magic missiles, but... oh. Nice. Okay. The gnolls are dead. Whatever those things were. Ow. Nice. Got him. 13 damage. Personal healing. Nice. Something's behind me, I think. Yep. Another one. Ozar? Nope. Strafe. Slash. Miss. Strafe. Slash. Dead. Simple as. That thing is still mad at me. Is it? I guess there's nothing. Was this a shield? Oh, yes. Nice. Ozar now has a shield. Or is AC a little bit more? Make him harder to hit. A rock. What's this? Cleric Scroll of Flame Blade. I don't know if that's going to do us any good because she already knows Flame Blade. I think scrolls might be consumable, meaning they don't actually cost any spell slots. It just lets you cast it instantly and it consumes the scroll in the process, so I'm going to save and then rest. Might be able to finish this floor. What I'll probably do is I'll look into how many floors there are in this game. I might come back to it. I might. Just to say I finished it on stream. Let's go over spell slots. Yeah, they haven't learned anything higher, so... River spells... Protect evil, protect... Good, so let's clear this. Cure. Protect, okay. This is fine. No higher ones. So scribe, anything to scribe? Nothing. Okay. Let's rest. Alright. I'm looking forward to, of course, Club Night on Wednesday. I believe Alice and I are going to be playing more Trinity Trigger, which is a nice, lighthearted co-op game. I actually really enjoyed it. And Thursday, we'll be continuing Trails in the Sky story with second chapter, the original second chapter. The remake of it actually comes out September, but I can't wait. The remake has got me all worked up over Trails yet again. Okay, that's the way the teleporter is. It's a very long hallway, and it's a trap tile too that makes it longer than usual. Little tricks that they use to make hallways seem longer. A gem. Okay, so we have one gem. Let Willow hold on to that. Oh, he's dead. Ah, trap tiles. Okay. Ah. Assuming a gem goes in here. Something has changed. Actually take the gems. Okay, interesting. That you can see on the map, this is a trap tile. Okay, so follow this around. Another gem. So we have another one. Okay, let's put the gem in. I know there's other doors that require gems, but since I can just remove them. Oh, another trap tile, as you can see. And another one. I'm gonna assume the last one's here. Yep. Okay. Oh, hold on to that. So the last pair of eyes. What happens with all of them having gems in them? Anything? Doesn't look like it. Oh shit! A doll. Smack Lucille. Come here. The AC is helping significantly against these gnolls. Not so much against the spellcasts of the Fishman. Okay. There's one more. Hello? Does this solve the puzzle? They've turned purple. I don't know if that's good or bad. Does that disable the trap tiles? Whoa. Where did I go? Revealed something. So if they... A pit. There's a pit in the southeast. Why are the gems purple? Can I take them? The gems were purple. I don't know if I broke it. I'm gonna take some of these. I only take one. Okay. I'm curious if these Oh, I see. This thing opened. If I'm supposed to use these specific gems for... Oh, stairs down. For the other doors. Wow, okay. That is armor. Chainmail. Excellent. Perfect for my fighter. Here's leather armor. Arrows... Not super helpful. So I don't have any thieves or rangers. Rations, okay. So I need seed anyway. Seal's hungry. Willow's also hungry. Nice. Hero could wait for... Nah, he can eat. Oh, Hero eats a lot, doesn't he? There's some stairs down. And I'm still curious if the other... Well, let's save it and go down. And go for a small bit longer. Save game. Oh boy, okay. An injured dwarf lies on the ground before you, nearly unconscious from his wounds. Let's heal him up, I suppose. Having regained his strength, the dwarf thanks you. I thought that I had met my death at the blade of that drow. In battle, our king was grievously wounded, and the young prince kidnapped. I tried to stop the drow, but alas, I was overcome. You have saved me from death. I wish there was some way to thank you, but I have nothing. I am alone, separated from my people during the battle. May I join you so that together we can search for my people? Ah, another dwarf, yes. As Tagor joins your party, he says, during the battle, I chased my enemy up a staircase to this level. My people should be at a level just below us. Aha. Interesting. So you can have 6. I'm gonna assume 6 party members. I thought it was just the 4, but I didn't realize there was NPCs you could hire. Okay, so I'm not done on this level then. What I'll do is, since I have Taker, I'm actually gonna heal him up a bit. Taker? Because I think resting drains the oops. I think resting drains the food gauge a bit too much, so. Well, this is perfect because Tagore, what does his stats look like? Wow, 4 AC, huh? Oh, because he has chainmail. Okay, oh, and he has a dwarf helm. I don't know what that does, but 4 AC? God damn. All my fighters have an excellent AC, 4 and 2. So I have some equipment here, some spare equipment. I have a mace. I don't know if this helps him at all. He also needs to eat. Here, take some of Ozar. Ozar has a shit ton of food. This mace. Right, so we saved the dwarf. I like his art too. I want to see if I can take these gems to the other doors. It's 2. Can't pull that one out. That's 3. Was there a 4th? No, okay. Let's go back this way. This teleports us back, but one of the doors is just over here. Okay, let's put this jewel in. It doesn't fit. What's the point of these jewels? What about this one? That doesn't work either. Okay. The jewels have served their purpose, it looks like. That doesn't explain these other doors, though. This one. Changed here. Bunch of keys. So where does one find these keys? Just don't know. There's another door that I missed. This was a trap tile. This is where I went initially, and then I turned around. Unfortunately, my rule of always going left more often than not is actually the correct way in a lot of these dungeons. Always happens. Okay. Trap tile? Trap tile. Okay. It's a little cheaty because I had the auto map on, but beats being stuck there for half an hour running in circles like an idiot. There we go. Trap tile? Trap tile. Yep. Okay. All right. Let's see. There we go. Oh, I remember those trap tiles in the first the Wizardry 1 remake. More keys, so that's 2 keys. I'm assuming there's more. Okay, always left. Fishman! Oh god, Tagore! Nice, Tagore got him. Nothing here? Nothing. here as well. Okay, so we have 2 keys. Now, there is a door that takes 2 silver keys. And there's also the room that holds 3 silver locks. So I'm gonna... Okay, trap tile. Gonna make my way back. Yep. There we go. Make my way back to the... I think I can take the teleporter here. No, I don't need to. I can just walk back. Here we go. Okay, so 1 key in. That just opens the door. Oh no! Gotcha. Okay. Oh, this is getting a little hairy. Okay. Ah, damn, another one? Fishman trap. There we go. Potion of healing. Perfect. Now, these are limited resources, so don't want to use that too much. What does this do? I don't know what that did. But my assumption is it cures the character or something. Potion of healing. Okay. Well, in that case, if that's I still have 1 more key. Let's go ahead and rest. Finish up this stage. Reach the stone dungeon. Call it. Because I just wanted to relax tonight. That Trails ending is Trails in general can be kind of be a little heavy on its storytelling. This is made for a very nice breather. Oh, I should actually go back because I didn't hit the other one. It puts me in the mindset for Underknots next time. So what does this do? Lock appears jammed. Okay, then what about this door? Or this room here? Does this go in here? The key fits. Oh. It spawned a fishman. Another key. Perfect. Okay, so you just need the 1 key for in here, it looks like. Some food. Key. A blue button. Ah. Detect magic. Not super helpful, but okay. Are the people who made this game still alive? That's a very good question. The guys who probably made this game were old as fuck when they started designing this shit. I know one guy is still alive. He made the Command & Conquer series. But that's it. I don't know about anybody else who made this game. Backstabber. Interesting. They might as well have been, man. Some of the design choices in this game are very, very special. I don't have any more locks. Or I don't have any more keys. Let's get to the next stage and call it. You can spend hours on this game in 1991 and not get anywhere fast. Like, this map that I have is built into the game, but it's like a mod that came with the game. Because without it, it would take you hours to get to the right direction, go the right way. Okay, I have a gem. Let's go here. Oh god. Okay. Balls. Okay, that's one. And base. It's just close the door, okay. Oh, that's the way out. Was there a trap tile? There is a trap tile in here. Oh my god, okay. Okay, my cleric is leveled. Fireball. Now that is something worth learning. Definitely rest. And attacked mid-rest by a fishman? Oh god, come on. There we go. Rest again. All characters fully rested. Perfect. What is through this door? Gnolls. A lot of pissed off gnolls. Oh god, okay. Strafe, strafe. High level. Dungeon crawling gameplay. Where did they go? They flanked me. Oh. Nicest one. Come on. And two. Very nice. There we go. Finally. Whew. Okay. This trap tile, man. Again, this trap tile. These trap tiles alone would confuse the... I have a map, but it still confuses me. Okay. Now, the issue with Tagor being in the party is that he has no range. Can he wield a bow? If he can wield a bow, his helpfulness is going to skyrocket. Please tell me you can wield a bow. Yes, 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 yes. Can he actually shoot it? Oh, he can. Very nice. Okay. We have a dwarf archer. Not a fighter. But okay. With that noble. There's a fishman through there, but there's a gnoll over here somewhere. Where is he? There he is. Oh. My arrow. Oh boy, that's not good. Gotcha. Okay, him wielding a bow is infinitely more useful. You can't really swap that fast mid-combat, so it kind of... You can't really make use of swapping your fighters around. As well as optimally, you just fill it with mages. Fill it with wizards. Okay, this went back. There is a... Oh, I thought there was a trap out there. So there's one more door. Give me a fishy. Ow. I'm dead. Spear! Here we go. So spears have reach. And reach means, from the back, you can hit the, let's take the bones. Okay, longsword. I have a longsword? It's a short sword, okay. So what the longsword? Here we go. Hell yeah. Short sword for backup. Alright. Let's go down those stairs. And there is something there. Oh, he throws the spear? He throws the arrows too. But you don't need a bow, you just need hands, man. The fuck? Okay. I didn't expect him to throw the spear, that he would just, you know, stab him. But I guess that's not the case. No, no, no. Why would it be? They have tons of attacks per round. Which is perfect. More attacks means more DPR. Wow. For a first time foray into this, I think I did pretty well. Let's get the fuck out of here now, though. I'm done with the fishman. Oh, that's right. Trapped house. There we go. What? Is another? I want to go back to where the dwarf was. And that's where I'll save. Okay. So where did we find Tagor? And that's probably a good place to stop for tonight. Ah, yep, this is already confusing as fuck. We got trapped halls and the hallway extends. Yep, okay, yep. We're getting into some nonsense here, some dungeon nonsense. Okay, yep. Okay, let's save and call it there. I had fun. I had fun with that. If I didn't like ancient games that are older than I am, I probably wouldn't like that so much. But I did enjoy what I played. That is something that I would like put on like a laptop for travel and just fuck around in while on the go. Right. So yeah, that was a foray into an ancient DOS game. I am a big fan, I'm a major fan of D&D, so being able to see some of its old games is it's really neat. It's really cool to see what the limitations of tech, how they worked around it to make a game like that. And they forayed into all different kinds of games. There's strategy games, there's grand strats. There's a lot of those types of first-person games. With parties and all that you fight in real time with. They even have like I can't remember what it's called. It's called like Dragon Spear or Dragon Lance or something like that. But there's one where it's like almost like an Ace Combat type game where like you're flying in first person on dragons, fighting other dragons and shit. They got really creative with the fucking gameplay at the time. Maybe want to eat mushrooms and play. You know what? I think only someone who's on mushrooms will be able to make sense out of the dungeons in that game as you go along. I had a peek at that last stage, and the hallways are moving and shit. It's like, oh man, this is what happens when the old dudes who were into D&D were probably hippie as fuck and on an assortment, a cocktail of mind-altering enhancements. Because only a madman could come up with gameplay like that and maps like that. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this very old game. I want to explore more very old games too, because it's nice seeing the quality of life improvements that they came up with over the years, that we don't have to deal with nonsense like that anymore. And we have, for this week, Wednesday, we have co-op night with Alice Knight. We're going to be playing more Trinity Trigger, which we had fun with. Nice little, cozy little co-op, couch co-op type dungeon crawler. And then Thursday, I'll be starting Trails in the Sky second chapter, the second game in this series. I'm hoping to get through the second game and the third game for before the remake comes out in September next week. I'm gonna start Undernauts, I think. Really commit to another a modern dungeon crawler. We play something that came out within the last, 5 years. And that should hold me off until next month when Resident Evil Requiem drops in a month, if I remember correctly. Late February. So that's gonna be the next big horror game to go through. And I'm really looking forward to that. Resident Evil 9. Been waiting years for that shit. Leon S. Kennedy, that's right. Daddy Leon is making his return. He's older, he's hotter, and he's got a whole lot of guns, quips, one-liners. I need the whole shebang with Leon. It looks fucking awesome, yeah. My understanding, his parts are supposed to play more like Resident Evil 4? Be more action-orientated, and then the parts with the girl Grace are supposed to be more like Resident Evil 7. Classic horror, jump scares galore. He looks quite sexy. It's the hair. It's the hair in his jacket. He always got a cool as fuck jacket on, man. He is styling. RE4 is everyone's here. RE4 is just good in general. The original or the remake. You can't go wrong with Resident Evil 4. I think that's the big thing. If you play the original Resident Evil 4, it's good. If you play the remake, it's great. Can't go wrong with them. He's got the 90s cool kid in a teen show haircut. Yeah. Only a guy like Leon could pull off a look that he uses, he utilizes. It's peak. I will say this. If you actually do go through all those Resident Evil games, do yourself the favor. You can just kind of skim through 5 and 6. I didn't find 5 very fun. Even in co-op, I didn't find it very good. The game was not good. It didn't play very good. I don't like 5. I never touched 6 either. I've only heard bad things about it. Tato Owen didn't simp for that haircut. It's a mix of his haircut. He's got the jawline. He's got the cool personality. Giga brain horror. Oh man. Yeah, I tried to play through 5 with Doom a few years back. It was a pain to get it set up, and then it was a pain to actually play through it. It wasn't fun. It was clunky as all hell. I don't understand how. Some people look back fondly in that game because, man, it was pretty bad. Well, I took the gameplay of the original 4 and then fucked it up. I don't know why they didn't just remake 4 and make it co-op, but it was clunky as fuck, man. I was not a fan. Not a fan at all. Even with 2 players, it's clunky as all. The best part of 5 was when it ended. Seeing the volcano's cutscenes is cool. I have heard rumors that they're trying to remake Resident Evil 0. Which, if they want the co-op stuff, 0 is probably going to be the one to start. Because 0 had like a tag in, tag out. It wasn't co-op, but it had like you tagged in characters. You tagged as one guy. And you also tagged in as Rebecca Chambers. And then you played the different areas of the game. I imagine they're going to probably use the tag in tech to try and attempt to remake 5 proper co-op with their modern engine or whatever it is. That's my assumption anyway. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Come on, man. Yes. Resident Evil 9 next month is shaping up to be possibly the goatee. We'll see. But those other RPGs will keep me occupied until then. Along with I might try something. I might play something smaller horror again. Last one was kind of a bust. The last horror game I played was kind of a bust. It was alright, but it was like too alright. You know what I mean? It was too mid as fuck. Kind of turned me off on that, but I have a few stashed away just in case. Maybe one night within the next couple of weeks, I might do a horror game. Maybe I'll finish the last Here's the Fathom game because I bought the series, but I think I missed one. I think one I did not play through yet anyway. But I'll figure that out next week. So thank you all for watching. Thanks for coming to swing by. Come hang out. Come relax on this. I don't know where you guys. If it's chilly there, it's very cold here. It's very nice for me to be inside where it's warm and play something like this for a bit and warm up. But it's going to be even colder tomorrow, so that sucks. Next week. Nah, I'll be back on Wednesday. We got co-op night on Wednesday. Next week I'm talking about I'm gonna figure out Undernauts in a horror game. Next horror game I'm gonna do. 8 trail streams in the next 7 days. Oh my god. I don't think so, Tim. We'll stick with just the one on Thursday. I might do an extra stream on Friday and Saturday. It really depends, but I'll figure that out later. But it's coming. It's coming on Thursday. So, as you come to watch, guys, I hope you relaxed and chillaxed a little bit watching this ancient game. That is, it's aged okay. I thought it aged alright. We'd come back to this eventually. But it's just more modern stuff that's just gonna play better. I still really like playing these old games, so it's also the clunkiness and the crustiness of the graphics and sounds and the like. It tickles me, and I like seeing them. You want a Goblin PNG? Make it happen. I'll grab the. If you just look at my border on my stream, I think the one on the top left is a Goblin. I think it's an archer. Embossed into the stone. We'll get it. I'll make his mouth move. Give him a little South Park style mouth that moves when it talks. Auction house comeback tutorials. Anyway, yeah, I know you enjoy this. Yeah, I have a list of other ancient games to check out too. I'm not gonna do them all the time. I do like seeing them every once in a while, though, every few weeks. So, a fat goblin and 10k gold. So if you look at the second one on the top border, that's a I think that's an ogre king. But if I color him green, he kind of looks like a goblin. I don't have to color him green. I think I have a green variant. He kind of looks like he looks like Biggie. I don't know if I've ever shown you the full picture. He looks like that picture of Biggie Smalls with the king crown on his head. But like fantasy, like a fantasy monster. I even named it Biggie.png. Yeah, actually, I can blow it up. Give me a second. I'm gonna show you this. This is really funny. Hold on. Let me capture this image. I need to show you this. This is funny. I'm gonna name it Biggie. He's purple, but I think there's a green one. I just had the purple one on hand on the on my desktop. Look at him. Look at this guy. Look at this Giga chat. Look at him. How's that, Sarksic? I think there's a green one. I'm pretty sure there's a green version of it. Does he look like Biggie? It looks like the fucking Biggie picture. Look how happy he is. He knows everything that you don't. He's disgusting. Look at his chains. His solid gold. I don't even know what that thing on his back is. Like a plate? A dinner plate, maybe? Jesus, this guy's a Palpatine up with his goddamn. Can't fathom his money. Yeah, this guy is loaded, man. He's like the loot goblin that ate all the other loot goblins. I think there's a green variant. I'm pretty sure there's a green variant. I'd have to look in my folder of that art that I downloaded before. Anybody complains, this art is free to use, free of copyright. The artist made it for a Java wizardry, and he released it to be used as anyone deems fit without any copyright. Only certain images, but I didn't get any of those images specifically, so. But yes, this. He's peak. Look at him. A little one right here. Even his new game, Survivor, now available on Mega Drive. New Goblin Prime. Yes. Say goodbye to Biggie. Thank you guys for coming to watch. We'll catch you in 2 days on Wednesday for co-op. He's a problem, man. Alright. As always, Otters, farewell and take care. And farewell and take care. And farewell.